Welcome to the Post Shift Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry, brought to you by SHC. What has happened in Post Shift? Just welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast, and it's a doozy today. We're sitting down with Keegan McGregor, the Diageo World Class Global winner for 2024. He just got back about 24 hours ago from Shanghai, where he took home the global title. I'm really looking forward to chatting to him. But what I've done is you get an opportunity to listen to the interview I did with him in Halifax just after he won the Nationals in March. And then we'll go straight into the interview we did about the global. So you get to see where he just came from winning the Nationals to now winning the global. So I really hope you enjoy this episode, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye. Usually when I start my podcast, I ask you to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
But you are Keegan McGregor, the 2024 World Class Canada National winner. How do you feel?
I feel amazing. I don't believe it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I saw your face. I saw your face and I was like, damn. Like you thought you had a chance, but you're like,
Yeah.
and then it got
I'm
announced.
running on like 8 hours of sleep, I feel like. So this is all very much a dream.
It's good. Tomorrow morning you'll wake up with that tucked in bed with you and you'll be like, oh no, I won. So like, let's talk about Monday. Like we did the Talisker Challenger first thing Monday.
Yeah.
How are you feeling that? Like you're the hometown boy.
Yeah.
Like the crowd went mental. How are you feeling going into it?
Going into it, Peggy's Cove is home. Simply put, it wasn't foreign to me. It was very familiar. I know oysters. I love Scotch. So for the pairing, I wanted to keep it simple. And Shandoff so happened to be some of my favorite oysters. So it was just great.
What was your drink for Peggy's Cove?
So it was a very simple riff on a Rob Roy. I used a little bit of malt vinegar for some acidity and just kind of make it into a mini net. I also had sweet vermouth and a little bit of PX sherry to add more depth to it. Calvados to bring out those orchard fruit notes. Pinch of salt for that maritime flavor. And then Talisker Scotch.
And how many times have you competed in World Class now?
So this is my third time. I generally do every 2 years. So my first year, I guess, would have been 2019.
Wow.
I made Nationals in Whistler. And then 2022, I did Montreal for Nationals as well. So
why do you keep coming back? Because I asked James the same question earlier because he did the same thing. He did like 3 sets of World Class before he got like to the globals.
Yeah.
What makes you keep coming back?
It's honestly just to test myself, simply put. The last year has been very hectic, and I understand it's about to get more hectic.
Yeah.
But I didn't know where I stacked in the order of bartenders in the country. And I just wanted to test myself, push myself, get out of this kind of stagnant routine I was in. And I wanted to just expand my vocabulary of cocktails, simply put.
How long have you been bartending for now?
15 years. I've been doing cocktails for about 7. But I started off slinging beers at music venues. It was a way to pay to tour, essentially. And then the band eventually broke up. Cocktail bartending was fun. And I was in Newfoundland at the time, and I moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, because I understood we had a good scene. It was close to my family. It was close to my partner's family. And I just kind of dove head first.
How's your whole week been? How have you taken the whole week? Because you won a couple of challenges. You like won overall, obviously.
Yeah.
How's your whole week been on a personal level? How have you been feeling?
Definitely like stressed out, but confident. It's probably been the most confident and calm I've ever been for World Class or any competition. I got to a point where regionals, I really got in my head about everything and where I may place. But this past week for Nationals,
This is for you, mate. Congratulations.
thank you. Well done. Tasty. But yeah, for Nationals, I kind of just looked at everyone as a colleague, not as a competition, an opportunity to learn from someone and to grow as an individual. But ultimately, I wanted to be me. I wanted to stay myself. I'm a weird, awkward guy, ultimately.
I think all bartenders are.
Yeah.
Like, deep down, we're all those kids who were like the awkward, quiet one at school.
Yes.
And we became bartenders, so we were cool.
Yes.
Like outside looking in, cool.
It's why I have a mullet.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, usually for these competitions, I would pretend to be someone else. And this year, I was just like, I want to be me. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, then it worked. So I ultimately, the last 15 minutes, I learned it pays to be yourself.
Amazing. Do you think that's if you were going to talk to one of your bartenders that wanted to come, like that you work with, that's like, hey, I want to do world class next year?
Yeah.
Is that the biggest piece of advice?
I think so. I think if you're true, like I think if you're lying, someone can see through it. But if you're your honest, true self, people will fall in love with you as you're behind the bar. That's how you get customers. That's how you get regulars. That's just how service works. And I think in a competition setting, it makes sense to be you, ultimately. So that would probably be my number one advice. After that, sleep, eat well, stretch, maybe meditate.
Stretch. Well, the Amazing Race, horrible weather.
Yeah.
Like, well, for you, probably a great
I'm
spring
used to
day.
it.
Like a great spring day.
Yeah, more or less.
Oh, here comes Jake and Martin. Look at that. Now that we're not even thinking about settling in, what are your plans for the next 6 months outside of like globals? Now, like, wake up tomorrow morning and just go back to work and do your thing and be you.
Probably for the next 2 weeks, that's my plan. And then I'm going to have to start really looking at my phone. But I want to try to spend as much time with my family and my friends for the next couple of weeks and go from there, study, research, and try to have fun ultimately at the same time.
I think that's the one thing. Like, we were in the prep room last night and I was like, guys,
Yeah.
we're bartenders.
Yeah.
Just have fun.
And you were preaching then, credit to you. You said it and I gave a woohoo.
Yeah. You did
true.
actually do a woohoo. Well, man, congratulations. Like, I come from a small market, like, always tons of respect. Like, Jenna and I always go along because it's like Halifax, Victoria, same thing, different coast.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that like small market bartenders are just kicking the shit out of everything.
Well, and that's it. Like I said during one of my competitions, I feel like Eastern Canada is often overlooked and we're behind on trends, and that's partly correct to some degree, but we have passion, we have pride, we're humble people, but we want to show off.
Canadians. So you're like the purest of Canadians.
Yeah,
like,
we're the nicest provinces.
The nicest provinces.
Sorry.
Well, congratulations again, man. Like, amazing. Just so amazing.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Bye. What is happening, Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Sean Sewell. I'm really looking forward to this episode because it's kind of new and fresh and ready to rock and roll when it comes to this gentleman I'm going to be talking to today. Oh, something's not working on my end. Why? There we go. Is that working? There we go. Now it's working. So many little buttons now. Coming back to podcasting, there's so much new technology now that I'm sort of learning. I know it's an old man talk going, I got to learn all this new technology, but it's kind of cool. Just one thing, if you are watching, you can actually comment on the video and it'll come up as chat, so I can ask Keegan questions as we go along if you're up for it. So, of course, I'd like to introduce the man of the hour right now, Keegan McGregor, the 2024 Diageo World Class Global winner.
It's still wild to hear that.
Oh, your face! That video basically is going to become a meme for the video that's going to become a meme for the rest of the year.
Yeah, which is fine. I laugh every single time I see it.
Yeah, you watch Mover and Shaker's going to pick it up, and it's like when someone asks for a cocktail with no ice. So, for everybody watching, how about you introduce yourself and sort of tell everybody a little bit of a background onto why we're sitting here talking together right now.
Yeah, so my name's Keegan McGregor. I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia. I manage the bar at Highwayman, downtown Halifax. I've been bartending for about 15 years, doing cocktails for about 7 of them. I've done world class 3 times, and then third time's a charm, and I won the whole thing. So, which is wild. So,
we just did talk about your initial reaction. Like, the competition goes, the globals going over 4 days.
Yeah, it goes over the course of three days. I'd say like 3 days worth of competitions, 4 days with like kind of like meet and greet and icebreakers and stuff.
What was your initial reaction when they announced it outside the video? If people haven't seen it, just what was your reaction when you were standing in the crowd and all of a sudden it was just like, bam?
I had like I had this weird like premonition that day. Like it was really strange, and it happened when I did nationals as well. I had this weird like premonition of like myself on stage. So I finished like the last challenge, which was a pop-up bar, and then like everyone was like really friendly with me and like approaching me. I was like, this is weird. Like I must have done really well. Like I must have made like top three kind of thing. And that's all I kind of believed. I pretty much like ignored everyone else in the room for the most part. So I didn't know where anyone placed or like how well anyone did. And then yeah, they called my name and I was just like, what? Like, no. And then because they play a video like leading up to making the announcement, and I'm looking at the video and I'm like, I'm not in it. I see everyone else in the video, but I don't see me. And I was like, maybe I'm not photogenic, kind of thing. And then
it could go either way. It's like, am I not in it because I've just blown my chances, or am I not in it because I completely took everything? I've got a special video just for me.
Totally. And like it was so like all that was running through my head, and then all of a sudden they say my name and I was just like, what? And then people are just like shaking me. Because I had a feeling I did well. Like I definitely didn't do my, like for me at least, I knew I made some mistakes along the way. And I thought that was going to like cost me like maybe second or third place, which would have been awesome. But I did well enough overall that it got me the win, which was amazing. So
yeah, James Grant was very, very happy.
He was pretty thrilled. Caitlin was off to the side. You didn't quite see her in the video, but she was crying as well. So that was awesome.
And then to top it off, you've got the World Class Globals coming to Toronto next year.
Yeah, which is crazy. I knew we were like pitching for it, but Michael Armistead definitely like kept his lips pretty sealed about it. There was like, you saw us all with like the Maple Leafs or the Toronto Maple Leafs jerseys, and there was one point over the course in Shanghai where I saw the jerseys and I was like, oh, this is just in case I place like top 8 or in case I make like top 3 or something. And then they just like kind of disappeared for the rest of the trip. Like I made top 8, I didn't see them. And then we were all in the crowd together, but they kind of like scooted me and the judges to the side. So I guess everyone put on the jerseys and I just like was totally unaware. But yeah.
Yeah,
wild.
Michael, I knew about it back in Halifax, but like Michael really just such a genius.
Yeah.
The one that we've done back-to-back Canadian global winners now, which is huge, which is insane. 4 out of the last 15 global winners have been Canadian, which just shows the level of talent. When it comes to preparation for world class, because I think this is something we do very differently in Canada, which is why I think we've just been killing it. When it comes to preparation from the day that you won nationals in Halifax, how did your life sort of change in the way of preparing for the globals?
So I won end of March, and then we ended up getting our global challenges, I think like the first week of July. So during that time, I knew I had to like flip a menu at work immediately. I had to hire staff, train them immediately. And then it was just like, there's a lot of research, a lot of R&D, I just like did not apply. There's like 1 or 2 drinks I ended up coming up with that ended up moving over. But it was just like, all right, like what new skills or what new like pieces of technology do I want to like learn and play around with while like still being me, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not like a foam guy. I mess around with foams. I was like, these are cool, but I don't care for them myself. So I learned how to do them, and then that was kind of it. So it was a lot about like trying to get myself to what I thought the standard should be, and like the quickest amount of time possible, so I can apply all of those skills that I learned.
Well, obviously still being authentic to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like that was one thing like Caitlin and the team like really like nailed in my head. They're like, don't change, be you. So like even during globals, I kind of had this like joke in my head. I was like, I'm maybe not as technical as everyone, but I can still make a really good drink, a really good balanced drink. So I want to like charm everyone with East Coast hospitality and like just get straight to their soul and like make them laugh and make them relax. So it worked. So I had Julie Reiner laughing for 5 minutes straight. I had Ryan Chetty laughing for 5 minutes straight. So I did something right there.
The big challenge that you did, you'll have to explain to me the Kettle One community thing. What was your big thing? Because your one was in depth, and
Yeah.
like the creativity of it all was just fantastic.
Yeah. So this is one like smart thing that Canada always does, because this tends to be a challenge that always appears every year at Global. So at Nationals, they wanted us to kind of propose this community initiative. Is that national level, it's always fairly broad, just like come up with a platform to better a community. So I had this idea of mural art. So I live in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and like 10 years ago, you just didn't want to go downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ended up revitalizing downtown Dartmouth by just like putting up murals everywhere. And then there's actually like science behind it, where it showed like a massive influx of businesses and economic growth and like honestly gentrification to some degree, because it made for like really beautiful spaces. So my partner actually had the idea of if I can kind of like propose this by doing like cocktail sales and initiatives to raise money for mural art. So when we got the challenge for Globals, it was community heroes of how to better the hospitality industry. So a lot of people kind of did it a little bit more direct, and I might have done it a little bit more abstract. I thought about the business in the community as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up raising money and putting up a piece of mural art on the outside of this kind of complex. There's a cafe, there's a brewery, and then there's 3 bars, and they're pretty much music venues. So I put up a giant, like 2-story high piece of art, and with the idea of, because the wall was ratty, it was super ratty. So the idea was make it more of a beautiful space, so it makes the staff more comfortable going to work. It's going to create foot traffic because it's a nice wall now and not just like grimy. So in turn, by bringing in foot traffic, you bring in economic growth, because people are going to be like, oh, that's nice. Oh, what's in there? Oh, it's a bar. Yeah, I'll have a cheap pint or like a Kettle One and soda or whatever. So that was kind of my angle. And then it's actually like super easy to scale. I've been talking to Bump in Calgary, which is the mural festival up there. And then I was like, hey, if you're on board, I'm going to get all these bars to feature this cocktail, and then they're just going to raise money for your mural festival if we can just find like a wall in the right kind of district or neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And they were on board, and I messaged Montreal, Toronto. They were interested, but the timing was a little bit like too soon. So the project itself can easily scale. So my plan over the next few months is kind of like plan out how I can scale it for next year and see if I can maybe get it somewhere in Europe or in America. Because it's really fun. It's really fun. It connects like artists, bartenders, businesses all together. And then it really creates a little tiny ecosystem within the community. So
it's amazing. Yeah. What were the biggest challenges when you got to Shanghai this year, and what were the biggest challenges that you were just like glad I prepared for this?
There was one in particular. So like other than the time change, for me it was 13 hours difference. So like how do I properly like sleep going there or like leading up to it, so I'm just not like a complete like miserable person. So that was hard. Also like teaching myself how to eat, as silly as that sounds, like forcing myself to eat food just so I had like energy. But there was like one challenge in particular where we had to do something with technology, and I'm not the most like technologically focused person. Like I know how to use a computer, I know how to use a phone, and that's like my limitations. I can like set up an amplifier and a microphone, but that's it. So that like challenge in particular was really hard for me. I spent way too much time, and then obviously I showed up, it like kind of broke, so I had to redo it like on the fly in Shanghai. It was so stressful. My mentor Massey, we were going down the elevator to the challenge room, and he was like, "This is your worst challenge." I was like, "Yep, it is." It is. Like everything went wrong leading up to it. And he's like, "You just have to like really sell it." And I was like, "I just have to really sell it." And I sold it enough that I like scored like decently well. I'll find out in a week or so like how exactly I scored, but That one for me was like by far the hardest thing in the world.
And you were talking
compared to
about
everything else.
mentors. You're talking about mentors with Massey and Caitlin, and James was there and Jeff was there.
Hmm.
When it comes to this, I said that the one thing that we do very differently is that the world class national winners never sort of go away from
Yeah.
working world class, which a lot of other countries don't do, which is unfortunate. But like, I think that's the big key. Do you, when
Yeah.
you're leading up to the globals, do you have like a scheduled Zoom calls and stuff like that with
Like
your mentors as you're going through?
honestly, I didn't. I had like a couple of scheduled trips. Like I'm in Halifax, and then I guess like home base is technically Toronto. Um, so my mentors were Jeff Savage from Prophecy Bar in Vancouver, and then Massimo Zetti of Mother in Toronto. So they were my mentors. So it was a lot of me being like, "Hey," on like WhatsApp, like, "Hey, I have this idea. What do you think?" And then them either saying like, "Sure," or "No." So there was a couple times I had to go to the drawing board, and then I had a scheduled meeting with them in Toronto. We all flew. I presented all my drinks. I think like this is like 2.5 weeks before our deadline for submissions. Like 3 drinks just like did not work. So I was in a bit of a crunch time. We sat down, kind of planned some ideas out. One idea in particular, I just went left field on from what I told them I was going to do, but I kind of presented my my presentation ideas. I was like, hey, I kind of want to talk about, like for Singleton, I wanted to talk about the connections between Nova Scotia and Scotland, so New Scotland and Scotland, and how in the 80s, like the fisheries collapsed out here, and then the whiskey lock happened in Scotland. So like 2 times of trouble, we strengthened community. And they're like, yeah, cool. Maybe like touch on this and this. I was like, cool. And that was it. Like it was a lot of me just like messaging them or like giving them a quick call, just being like, hey, I'm struggling right now. I just need a quick answer. And they'd just be like, yeah, like maybe say this, maybe do this, maybe tweak that a little bit. So it actually wasn't as like hands-on as I thought, but I think for everyone it's a little bit different. Like I talked to them afterwards and they were just like, we had all the faith in you. Like we were there to answer the phone. But we felt like you were very much like in control of your own journey, that we didn't want to sway you from what you wanted to do.
Well, you talked about that in R&D. How did you stay with the cocktails that you were doing fresh? Because it does, when you're creating a cocktail behind the bar for a bar menu, it's sort of there's pressure, but not pressure, if that makes sense. And then how did you keep it fresh and creative for yourself when you were like, this could make or break my whole run? Like, how does it with all that intenseness?
Yeah, so like I kind of ended up working backwards. So there was 4 main challenges, and then there's a top 8 challenge where we did a pop-up bar. So I knew for the pop-up bar I had this theme of like driftwood, and it was more or less like a Nova Scotian pub. The idea was like a lighthouse, like a spot of like safety and comfort to like ignore the storm outside. So I was like, I want like very much like Nova Scotia or East Coast inspired drinks. So I kind of crafted a menu there, and then some of them we had to carry over from other challenges. So I was like, what can I make for my like Tanqueray pass drink that would work on the menu and for this challenge? What could I make for the future drink that would work on the challenge and the menu? And then honestly, like some drinks were ones I had on menu already, that I made up that were just selling extremely well. And I was like, all right, like these 2 drinks are my #1 sellers. I fly through them. So let's just tweak them a little bit so they complement like Don Julio as the hero spirit, or as Tanqueray 10 as the hero spirit a little bit. So instead of doing like an umami bitters, I'm going to make a juniper bitters to pull out more juniper. I had this milk punch. I'm like, well, why don't I just add a little bit more black pepper to it to bring out that like peppery citrus note of the tequila. So it was a lot of that, and then a lot of just like telling myself, it's like, no, this is cemented. I can't change it. There's definitely like one last minute drink that kind of happened that I came up with, and I was kind of tweaking, like very, very tiny, just like mill by mill, leading up to it. Like the last week, I think I kind of dialed in the ratios of it. But I just kind of I just told myself, I was like, I have to commit. They sell well on menu. I'll do a feature menu. I'll see how they'll sell, and I just can't change it. And honestly, like some drinks I came up with in like mid-July, and I would feature them. They'd sell well, and then I was like, I'm going to honestly like ignore this drink. It's good.
It's
I'm
done.
going to. It's done. I'm ignoring it. I'm not touching it again. I'm not going to make it until like 2 weeks prior to. So I just don't get in my head, and I don't like mess around with altering anything. So it was just one of those things where you just have to have faith in yourself, and like the drink's good, don't touch it, and you have to like constantly hammer that into your head.
I think that's a good, because I think the hardest thing, one of the biggest things I've always had with cocktail competitions is that a competition drink is not a drink that you'd ever put on a menu. Like there's a difference, whether it be too many steps or too much elaborate prep. Like it's very rarely that you see a cocktail competition, and I think me personally, I've always said as a cocktail competition thing that it needs to be on the menu so that you can proof of concept that it can be made and it can be repeated over and over and over again consistently. But that's a great piece of advice for anyone who wants to compete next year. Put your cocktails on the menu and see how they sell.
Yeah, I think there was honestly one drink I made where I was like, this drink is banging, but it takes me 48 hours to make. So like it's never going on menu. I'll make like some version of it, but I was like, all right, this drink is really good. So I'm going to spend 2 days making it. I'll feature it. I'll make sure people like it. I'll get feedback, and then I'll get the feedback. I'll sit on it for a week or two. I'll do like the tweaks I have to. I'll spend another 2 days making it. But yeah, like for the most part, everything I did were like menu worthy drinks, except for this one, just because the process for one ingredient was just like too elaborate.
It's been a couple. Have you been home for like 48 hours? Ish.
Barely.
Barely.
Barely. I got home last night at 3 a.m.
Oh wow! So not even 24 hours yet. Not even like craziness. Has the impact of winning this massive competition sunk in yet?
I would say like, so I flew for 20 hours on like the other day, and I didn't know what to do. Like my Instagram was messed up. I got like 4,000 new followers. So I definitely spent like 5 hours on the plane trying to respond to everyone and like just try to keep up with who was following me. But like it didn't really sink. And I was talking to Caitlin Stewart about it, and I was like, this is weird. And then my really good friend Patrick, who's the bar manager of Dear Friend, ended up picking me up at the Halifax airport at like 2:30 in the morning. And I came out with my luggage, and he saw me. He rolled down his window and just blasted "We Are the Champions" by Queen. And
that sounds like Patrick.
Yeah. And so when that happened, I was just like, okay, it happened. And me and my family went out for dinner tonight at Ostrich Club, where my dear friends Alana Steele and Lindsay Jones work. They were off at a festival, working a festival, but my other friends were working, and they were just like, it sunk. It's sunking in to some degree. Like my whole kind of shtick for nationals was hometown hero, and then I won nationals at home, which was crazy. And then now it's like the city's going insane. Like the mayor messaged me.
Wow.
Yeah, just being like, congrats, buddy. I'm like, this is weird, but like, I'll take it.
That is fantastic. The mayor messaged you. That's fantastic. Well, let's bring up you know me, I'm a small town guy myself. Victoria,
totally.
Surprisingly enough, is way smaller than Halifax. I never thought we were that much smaller than Halifax.
No, weird.
We're much smaller than Halifax, but you know, I love my small town cocktail culture. I may be out there in November talking about it.
That's cool.
But the Halifax bar scene and Dartmouth to a degree as well, because I think when you talk about Dartmouth and Halifax, well, Halifax is the second or third time I've been there, so I never actually went over to Dartmouth because the times I've been there, there was nothing over in Dartmouth like Dear Friend, but like it's two very, very small cities like across a bridge from each other. Like Dartmouth could be Halifax East.
It more or less is.
Like, so tell us about the Halifax cocktail scene for the people that don't know about it, because I have been in love with Halifax since I think my first trip to Halifax was 2009. was my very first trip to Halifax back in the day. And I've been a couple of times doing parties and stuff. But what's the cocktail scene like in Halifax and Dartmouth?
So it's very small and very mighty. I'll say that. I'll say like, I forget the exact year, but something like 2010, 2011. Jenner Cormier, who owns Bar Kismet, he was the first winner of World Class Canada like ever. Him and then Cooper Tartavel were just like working clubs, just being like, this is a corpse reviver. I wonder if people will like it. And they spent years just like pumping it out, where in like New York and probably Toronto, people more or less knew what a corpse reviver number 2 or a last word were. So they spent years like trying to get people familiar with these drinks. And then Jeff Van Horn and Matt Boyle, who owned Dear Friend, they kind of came up on the scene. Shane Behan, and they were trying to do the same thing as well, like working at pubs, just being like, this is an old fashioned. Do you like it? It's whiskey and sugar, so it's good. So stuff like that. And then like the community definitely grew like quite a bit and pretty fast. And then when COVID happened, a lot of people kind of like retired more or less. So now I'd say there's a cocktail scene. You can go get a margarita or whatever, but I'd say there's maybe like 6 really good spots that are worth like going, and like, every time you'll get a really good drink. Like, we're small, we're mighty, we're not really too loud. We try to take like global influence as much as we can, but like we're often a market that's ignored, and I like to hope that moving forward we're not going to be ignored because of what I managed to accomplish for our community. But and say like, you have Dear Friend in Dartmouth, you have myself at Highwaymen in Halifax, you have Field Guide, Stefan Duval's doing really cool things. You have Ostrich Club with Lindsay in Atlanta. You have Bar Kismet, who made like 49th best restaurant, I think, in North America, and they made top 3 for Tails this year. So they're doing really cool stuff with Dylan Brentwood. And then there's like a handful of other spots where you go and like you're going to get a good drink. But it's still growing. Like, I know you came in back in March, and you're like, you should really like start trying to push it a little bit. And I started to do it. But at the same time, it's like, I can't scare away my clientele over here, because we're easily like 5 to 10 years behind. But that's where like we use hospitality to our advantage at cocktail bars, and like make people feel like comfortable and safe. Like, I want to make a drink that like you can understand the flavors, you can maybe understand the technique, and I'm not going to necessarily like scare you away with some ingredient. So
now that
it's what we try to do at least.
You've been around 15 years. As you said, the Halifax bar scene in Dartmouth is growing. Do you see yourself as a mentor for the younger generation that are coming up through the ranks now?
Like, I've always wanted to put myself in that position. The last like year, I've been extremely busy, and I imagine the following year I won't be really busy. But whenever anyone comes to the bar, like, I'm an open book kind of thing. Obviously, there's like a couple secrets I keep, because I'm like, I worked really hard at like learning this. So like, I'm not going to give you everything, but I'll at least like point you in the right direction. Or like, I had someone, he was creating a cocktail menu for a new bar, and he invited me to taste it as an outside person because he wanted an opinion. Sadly, I couldn't swing it just with my schedule. But he sent me his specs, and I just kind of like wrote up some feedback really quick to him. But yeah, I want to use this opportunity to really help my community grow. And like, if anyone has a question, like, especially locally, like, please reach out, because I want Halifax to really start being noticed on the international scene.
With the competition and everything, what advice would you give to a bartender who wants to do world class as a competition?
I'll give the advice that people gave me. Just like, make good drinks. Like, they don't have to be like super crazy. They definitely have to be interesting. But like, I had a Clover Club that was strawberry and mushroom. Like, at its core, it's nothing too wild. Just make like balanced drinks that are interesting, and then like just be yourself, because you can tell when someone's being fake. I guess, like, ultimately. I did that the entire time, and obviously like it paid off for myself. And just like show hospitality. And then like for world class specifically, like every challenge has a different rubric of like scoring. and just like pay attention to that. Like if something's technique driven, like techniques are like 40 points, then maybe, I don't know, do a milk punch, do a shake and drink, do a stir drink, and do like one piece of advanced like technology to kind of make it more interesting, just to show that you have this like diverse skill set. But if you have something that's like technique is only worth 10 points, then like just make a really good drink, and you don't have to really like get in your head about how complex it is. And maybe like storytelling is where the points come in, and just really focus on a really well crafted story that's real to you. Because there's something I read recently about public speaking where you're telling a story or you're telling something that you know really well, kind of thing, and you're just like educating. So maybe I'm going to tell the story about my life, so I know my life because I lived it, so I can like ad lib, I can make it very casual, stuff like that. Where if you're trying to like tell a story you made up, you're not necessarily going to like remember it. You can't be like loose with it. That's going to be a lot more like rigid and stiff, and it's going to be a little awkward. So just like kind of think about stuff like that.
I think
for presentations at least.
I think the one big thing that you've got, and I think you've mentioned it as well, is just being authentic. Because I think the hard thing with competitions like World Class, Bombay Sapphire, and stuff like that, a lot of times you see these bartenders who may work at a super casual spot, say like Highwayman, and then they get up on stage and they're in a tailored suit, and it's just like, well, but that's not really you. Like, I really, no offense, I can't imagine you being in a fully tailored suit with a double breast vest and everything else.
So, can I cut you off for a second?
Yeah.
So we had a presentation, Johnny Walker Blue. We needed to make a luxurious serve using technology. So this is the one I like really struggled with, and I knew I had to like sell. So I ended up getting a suit for it. And then within 10 seconds, I took the suit off. So I started off, I was like, hey, my name's Keegan McGregor. You know, I come from a blue collar background. I believe luxury is like whatever makes you comfortable. Like that's what should be important about luxury. Like I feel more important or more comfortable when I took off my suit jacket with like a nice shirt and a nice pair of pants than I do a suit and tie, and everyone died laughing. But like it was me, it was true. There was definitely like we did a Tanqueray 10 challenge where it was all about like hospitality, and I wore the suit jacket for that one. But I kept my personality the same, kind of thing. I was like, I'm not going to like clean myself up per se, I guess. I'll wear the jacket, but I'll still be like my casual, fun self the entire time. But yeah, when I took off the suit jacket, like I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm going to try it because it's me. And like I think that's true about luxury. Like luxury should be whatever makes you comfortable, and my theme was like quiet luxury. So, you know, sending subtle signals of wealth and not necessarily like flaunting anything. So yeah.
Yeah, I did a seminar at the RCO show, I think, and I came down to meet one of my other panelists, and he's like, oh, I gotta go suit up. He's like, are you gonna change? I'm like, nope. He's like, I'm wearing like a black and white vintage Bourdain shirt. I'm like, I'm wearing Bourdain. Like I'm wearing Bourdain. That's gonna be it. That's what I'm gonna be speaking in. He's like,
it's
okay,
nice.
I'll be back. Like, okay. Do you know how the next 6 to 12 months is gonna sort of lay out for you now? Like, has Michael and the team sort of gone, hey, so the XYZ, these are the things that's going to be happening in the next 6 months?
Not really. So like the global team is very much like taking a well-deserved week or two off because they just like worked their ass off and crushed it. So the global team's kind of chilling right now. They told me they're going to touch base in a week or two and kind of figure out my plan on that end. And then I know for the Canadian team, there's like some scheduling things for the next week. They want me in Toronto for something. November, they want me in Toronto for something. But then I think like for Canada, we're going to do our like cross Canada tour. So the cities, I'm not like quite sure, but like we're definitely doing Halifax. We're going to throw a party here for me. We'll most likely be in like Montreal, Toronto. We might be going somewhere in the prairies, I think they mentioned, which will be exciting. We'll be in like Calgary, maybe Edmonton. I think we're going to Victoria. I think we're doing Vancouver. So we'll do some Canada tour for sure. And then submissions are going to open up at some point. I honestly don't really know. They talked about it in front of me at one moment, but I was like so in my head that I just had no idea. They mentioned something. I was like, what? They're like, don't even worry about it. I was like, cool. So yeah, there's gonna be like Canadian Cross Canada tour at some point where we're going to talk about world class and like kind of explain that it's not as like hard to enter as you think.
Mm-hmm.
I think is the topic that we're going to really focus on, to make it like more approachable, because it is and should be very approachable for like anyone, kind of thing. You just make a drink. So.
I think it is daunting. I think right now in the cocktail competition circuit, everybody's trying to sort of emulate Diageo World Class a little too much, and there's not enough like single cocktail, single event sort of competitions going on to get the younger bartenders to at least dip their feet in the water to sort of like give them a go. Like we do something at Clive's called Drinks Academy, where we do it after a seminar. We do like bartender boot camp. And it's a test. It's just a quick, no one knows the score. 3 people learn how to judge. 3 people learn how to do a competition off the cuff. Like it's completely off the cuff. And people get pick out music and like really go all out on it.
Fun.
Like, so it sort of gets younger bartenders sort of getting the gist of things. But I think sometimes a lot of brands think too much like, oh, we want to be like Diageo World Class or like Bombay Sapphire or something like that, when it should just be like, let's just have a fun cocktail competition and whoever wins a trip or a gift card or something.
Totally. And like I don't know your opinion about this, but I remember like 5-6 years ago there was always a competition happening. And now there's a lot less. Like I heard like some of the big ones aren't coming back next year. Like I know out west you guys get more than we do out east. But yeah, I find at least like in my market, there's not as many. We have a couple like really local ones where it's called Imbibe. So pretty much like any rep just like kind of throws booze in the pile, and then they just like allocate, like you work with this brand, you work with this brand, you make a drink, and you do like people's choice and the judging choice, which I did this year. But I find for the most part, like a lot of these big companies are trying to like restructure everything, so there's less opportunities for people. Versus like 5-6 years ago, I found like every week there was a competition that like you're just scrambling to like submit something through to see, oh, maybe I'll get the trip to Toronto, or maybe I can like advance kind of thing. But I'd agree with that.
A lot of the times it's like they'll do something in Vancouver and not even suggest it to Victoria, and Victoria's not too far to travel. Like Kate Chernoff and her team and me and Harry did the Altos competition in Vancouver. The 2 takes 2 to Altos, which 3 cities over 3 months, 3 different cocktails. It was an insane experience. But we jumped over. But there's been like a couple of competitions in Vancouver that don't even like get mentioned in Victoria. So what do you think for Halifax now? Oh, actually, one question before we go on. Like with this tour coming up, if you get given the key to the city of Halifax by the mayor because he messaged you, are you going to carry that around as well as your Diageo World Class trophy?
Like I'll probably leave the trophy at home because it's pretty heavy. But like if the mayor gives me the key, I'll definitely like put it on my chain and just be like, look at this. I'll definitely like take that around with me.
That would be the most awesome epic thing. So the trophies are way heavier this year, because I know that in previous years they're not heavy, but they're like they got wolf to them. But like I've seen James's, I've seen Caitlin's, I've seen Jacob's as well. Yours is super heavy.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Yeah, so they changed it this year. That it's just like this like 20 pound like piece of glass now.
Wow.
So like I put it in my check luggage, and I have like 2 other ones from 2 other challenges I won, and I went through 2 kind of scans, and every time they're like, your carry-on luggage is pretty heavy. And I was like, yeah. They're like, there's also this like big thing of glass in there, we have to look. And I was like, sure. Like, and they looked at it, they're like, cocktail competition? I was like, yes, cocktail competition. But
you wouldn't be able to take that on your carry-on because that's like a bludgeoning instrument.
Yeah, exactly. Like part of me was like, are they going to take it? Are they going to take it from me? But everyone was so like stoked at the airport. They're like, that's really cool.
That's
Because I
awesome.
know there was one year, uh, my buddy Will Irving, he used to work at Bar Kismet. We were going to Toronto for world class regionals, and he had a mallet on his carry on, and they took it from him.
I think Harry had a coffee grinder confiscated on the way back from world class
Nice.
nationals. Yeah, he had a coffee grinder in his check luggage. They got nope, you can't take that on the plane.
Yeah.
Why? What's the blades? Okay, cool,
Yeah.
no problems at all.
Yeah.
So what do you see the future of Halifax for the next for the foreseeable future? Now that this is sort of, do you feel like it's lit a fire under the whole culture and Halifax? You're saying like the buzz is just insane. Do you think this is
Yeah.
going to show younger bartenders like what you can achieve when you apply yourself even if in a small market?
Yeah, I like to think I haven't like properly like seen anyone yet. I more or less have been in hiding, trying to relax and sleep since coming back. But like I've gotten so much like messages of support from everyone. There's like people in Europe. They knew I was in Canada, but they're like, "Where in Canada?" And I'm looking at their profile. I'm like, "You vote on 50 best, or you vote on 100 best." So there's going to be a lot more attention to us out here, which is great because there's attention in Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, Victoria, which is like all well deserved. But we're no longer going to be ignored. So I think that's really, it's going to put the fire under people, both in front and back of house. I know like my team is like super stoked. Everyone seems very eager to like improve in any way, shape possible that we can. And then everyone I've talked to is like, no way you did it. So there's definitely that like massive motivation for my community to like show the world what we've had all along. So yeah, everyone's very stoked. I plan on doing like a very simple pop-up menu this week when I work, just so I don't have to just like all highballs.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I'm gonna do batangas, I'm gonna do palomas, I'm gonna do dark and stormies, just like get people in and be like, this is happening.
Yeah.
Like we have to like bring it for this year or two and just like really kill it. So
well, I remember the party that happened after the nationals. Like that
was wild.
The party after the nationals was just insane.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So we come to the 5 deep questions of the podcast, which is 5 questions that I've got that I ask every guest when at the end of the podcast. What is the one lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry forward in life?
One lesson that shaped me the most, I think it's failure, like just failure in general, and trying not to like beat yourself up from it. Like I've always, like Jenner Cormier has always told me, like to be the best version of yourself. So how do you do that? You do that by failing. James Grant said the same thing, like enter cocktail competitions so you can fail. Because you learn from it. You're like, all right, why did I fail? Like, obviously this sucks. I feel terrible, but that's how you learn. That's how you grow as an individual. So yeah, I'd say that. And then just like always trying to improve, always try to be the best version of yourself. Like, okay, I failed because I had a lot of anxiety. So how do I like overcome my anxiety? Maybe I have to like meditate for 5 minutes. Maybe I have to learn to breathe a little bit better. Maybe I like start going to the gym. So like stuff like that. I'd say failure is like the biggest key to success.
Wow. If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a deep one, bud.
I told you, it's the 5 deep questions at the end of the podcast.
One lasting message. Have fun and treat everyone with the exact same respect, because that's a luxury everyone deserves. And it doesn't matter who you are or what someone looks like. We just like, it's hospitality. So hospitality is all about empathy and reflection. So what if you had a bad day, you fell in the mud, you walked into a bar and no one wanted to like talk to you or respect you? Like, it's like, oh man, I had a bad day. I just want to like have a drink and like say hello to someone, but no one wants to talk to you. So where you can be like, you can show up in your suit and you can be a dick. And people will like somehow respect you more just because you look nice. So yeah, I'd say like treat everyone with the exact same respect, because we all deserve that luxury.
Wow. Looking back on your journey, what's the something you wish you understood earlier in life?
Man, you're really like throwing these at me, eh? Something
Sleep deprived,
yeah,
sleep deprived.
yeah,
I'm just
really, eh?
just throwing you the deep ones.
Like I've been like sleeping for 2 hours at a time. I'll like sleep for 2 hours and I'm awake for 4 and I nap for another 2. Like my life's messed up. Something I wish I understood. I wish I understood how to have confidence in myself. That's something I've always struggled with. And then going into like both nationals and globals, I definitely like had imposter syndrome going into both of them, but I try to like put it to the side and just ignore that and just being like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to be me. But if you can just like believe in yourself, just like 10% more, if you can have just a little bit more confidence in yourself, you'll notice that you can go a lot further in life, whether it be like relationship, business, or just like competitions.
Wow. How do you define a success, and has your definition of it changed over time?
I'd define success as comfort and happiness. And I don't think that has changed too much. Obviously, I have a little bit more drive right now, obviously, from winning this competition. Doors are probably going to open up a lot easier than they would have like several months or a year ago. But I think if you can be happy, healthy, you're just like successful, just like no matter what. Like if you have a business and it fails, like obviously that sucks, but that's fine. As long as you can be happy and healthy by the end of it, I think that's what success really like comes down to.
What do you hope your legacy will be, and what steps are you taking to build it?
Man, that's something I've been like honestly trying to think of a lot since winning. I just want to be like respected. Like ultimately, I say I'm a humble guy. I want people to like truly believe that I am. I don't want that to come across as fake. I want to be helpful. I want to help raise my community up, because what is it? The rising tide raises all ships. I think it's the saying, something like that. So like if that quote can be like associated with me, if that could be like on my tombstone, that would be great. But I don't necessarily like want to be like a superstar or anything like that. But I did this competition, especially nationals, like obviously for myself, but obviously to bring attention to Eastern Canada. And then going into globals, I told myself this is for me, but it's also for my community. So I want my legacy of being someone who like helped out his community and like brought attention to an area no one knows about.
So we're not going to see you moving to a bigger market anytime soon. Halifax is home and grown.
Like for now, yeah. Like who knows? Like things can change. Like maybe I get an offer that's like too good to be true. But like prior to globals, my plan was to open up a bar in a year's time. Now post globals, I'm probably going to push that back a little bit, because I'm going to be like fairly busy with the global team by the sounds of it. There's going to be a lot of like learning opportunities. But like, I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say yes. Like for now, I see my, like, I grew up in New Brunswick. I spent a lot of time in PEI. I lived in Newfoundland for 7 years. I've been in Nova Scotia for about like 6-7 years now. So it's very much like home for me. I love Toronto. I love Montreal. I love Vancouver. I haven't spent time in Europe. Like my father's from Scotland. Maybe like I'll go over to Europe and be like, you know what? Going there.
Yeah.
See ya. I doubt it, but who knows? But as of now, unless some wild opportunity knocks on the door, I'm staying here. If someone asks for something, I'll try my best to like juggle it. Be like, hey, I want to stay in Halifax like 4 days a week, and then fly me out to like wherever for 3 and try that out. But yeah.
Well, the cool thing is I never actually used any of the audio from the nationals. Unfortunately, Michael.
Oh yeah.
If you're listening, I apologize. But what I'm going to do for this episode is actually cut in your interview after you won nationals at the start of this podcast, and then we're going to talk about global. So everybody's going to get to see the what do they say? How it's going? Well, what we thought and how it's going.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, like what we thought was going to happen and how it's actually happened. So I really appreciate you sitting down with me, man. I honestly
no problem.
You messaged me back so quickly. Like I was just blown away. Like I think may have been just before the competition global started.
Yeah.
During, and I was like, I'd love having a podcast. Whatever happens, like let's chat. And you were just like, yep, no problems at all. Let's do this.
Yeah. Like honestly, like you've made like a huge impact. Like you're a legacy when it comes down to it. Like you made a huge impact on the West Coast, and like it's been bleeding out east. Like as time goes by, like you're someone who like I've idolized for a while, and I know like a lot of my community has known about. Like you did that pop up after nationals, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like you taught me like little tiny things that I didn't necessarily like use at globals, but I definitely like applied that like that thought process towards. So like as soon as you reached out and I knew like the podcast was coming back, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like 100%. I want to talk to Sean.
I appreciate that, man. Well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to chatting to you really soon, but thank you so much and get some sleep.
I'll try my best, man.
Okay, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Take care, bud.
Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.